Welcome everybody to the Additive Snack podcast. I'm your host, Fabian Alefeld, and today we have a thrilling episode lined up where we dive into the intersection of additive manufacturing, personalized healthcare, and even artificial intelligence. Our guest is from Restore 3D, a groundbreaking medical device company headquartered in Durham, North Carolina. Restore 3D is revolutionizing orthopedic medicine with personalized surgical implants that promise better outcomes, less complications, and an exciting future that reaches beyond orthopedics. With its drive to innovate, Restore 3D represents the cutting edge of what technology and additive manufacturing can really achieve in medicine. Joining us today is Restore's brilliant CTO, Cambre Kelly, a key figure behind the company's impressive success. And Cambre recently also joined the Forbes 30 under 30 list in the manufacturing and industry sector. Cambre, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Cambre, before we get into the technology of Restore 3D itself, can you share a bit about your journey from your early days at Duke to becoming a PhD specializing in 3D printed porous structures in orthopedics?
Yeah, happy to. So my background by training is biomedical engineering. I'm from the Atlanta area originally and went to Georgia Tech for undergrad, studied BME there and got my first experience in the orthopedic med device space working at a couple startups in Atlanta. So really fell in love with the early stage translation of academic-based technologies into commercial products in a small startup company that's lean and agile, and everybody wears multiple hats, and got to see a lot of different sides of the business. So really fell in love with that space, and then ultimately ended up in North Carolina at Duke University. And like you said, did my PhD. All of my research was focused on 3D printed porous structures with an application focus for orthopedic devices. So very lucky as a grad student at Duke to have access to one of the first laser powder bed fusion machines that was landed in the United States from 3D Systems. We had basically titanium powder and were trying all sorts of different porous lattice structures at the time. Back then, there wasn't a ton of literature on this space, and it was really just a first frontier of thinking, what are all the lattice structures that we can even print and what's printable or not? And so doing a lot of kind of early experimentation with lattice building softwares, and then trying to print stuff and finding out what prints, what doesn't print, and then starting to try to characterize the mechanical performance of those structures, and then ultimately looking at some of the osseointegration and performance of the structures in vivo as well. So it's been really cool to understand and watch that space evolve from a research aspect as well as an application aspect.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think in the industry, we often just treat lattices as lattices, and it's just one term that everybody throws out there. But there's a lot of differences and unique characteristics in the different types of lattices. Could you help us elaborate a little bit on the different terms and types of lattices and what types of characteristics we assign to these?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly right. When you think about the medical device industry, now that porous lattices have become a little bit more ubiquitous, everybody has their own lattice structure that they print that's proprietary and special and optimized and all that sort of stuff. And I think one of the things that we do at Restore 3D is we really think about this from a fundamental scientific standpoint. And so in those early days where everyone was trying to understand and characterize lattice structures, we lacked a common vocabulary even to describe these sorts of structures. We've now evolved some of that. Back then, the literature didn't really describe the strut diameter or the pore size or some of the connectivity aspects of the lattice that, in order to do apples to apple comparison with your data and the literature, if you're missing some of that information, we realized that it wasn't always a fair side-by-side comparison. And so we set out to do a lot of that work at Duke and basically tried to characterize all sorts of lattice structures, including kind of strut-based architectures like the octet truss, for example, which have been reported in the literature to have superior kind of mechanical properties. But then also at the time, started looking at sheet-based lattices, and there wasn't a lot of studies in the literature looking at these structures. There were just a couple out of a research group in Leuven that had just preliminarily looked at some of the sheet-based triply periodic minimal structures, including the gyroid. But honestly, most of the literature was focused around their application for heat exchange, and none
Yeah.
of it was really focused on the potential for using it in orthopedic or medical applications. And so we got pretty excited as we started studying that structure side by side with some of the strut-based architectures and realized that, for example, the gyroid sheet lattice, which is what we use at Restore 3D today in 85 to 90% of our implants, and we call that our title technology, which is the branding marketing name for it, because gyroid is sometimes hard to pronounce. But anyway, we started realizing that the mechanical response was superior for a given porosity, and then under fatigue loading also had superior performance, and then ultimately studying it in a number of animal models to show optimized porosity and pore size to allow for bony ingrowth. So it's been really cool to continue to study that lattice and how we use it and find that it truly is optimized for these sorts of orthopedic applications.
Yeah, that's super interesting, right? Your research really led you in this unexplored territory. And you're right, where we see gyroids today, except for Restore 3D, I would say, is in heat exchangers and thermal management applications, heat sinks, and the likes. So seeing your applications and your devices out there is very unique, which kind of brings us to the story of Restore 3D itself, right? How did the journey of the launch go, and how did the whole founding happen?
Yeah, great question. So we founded the business in 2017. So we just celebrated 6 years last month, which is
Wow, yeah.
crazy, like the fastest and the longest 6 years of my life, probably. And I think for a lot of the other co-founders too, it's crazy to celebrate that milestone. So yeah, we started basically on a lab bench at Duke, and we've grown exponentially over the last 6 years since. One thing I say is that one thing we're really good at doing is underestimating how quickly we're going to grow and need space. We've moved 4 times in 6 years. So everything from a lab bench to an incubator space, then we moved to our first manufacturing facility, and then we've just moved into a state-of-the-art facility that we completely planned to allow us to scale here in Research Triangle Park in Durham. So pretty excited to see the growth and kind of reflect back on the last 6 years and in light of the new facility and the plans and everything that we're doing. The founding of the business was really based around a vision of using additive manufacturing to enable better outcomes in orthopedics. And the way that we saw it at the time and still see it today is that additive manufacturing gives you two key advantages. One is the complex porous lattice structures that we've been talking about, and how that gives us new opportunity to spatially design implants where we want bone to grow in and where we might want articulation or other attachment features for fixation or supplemental hardware. And so additive manufacturing exploded the design envelope of the possibility of what we can do with CAD-based design tools now, and then actually realize those parts through the manufacturing process. And then the other is in that same vein, personalization. So how do we think about taking a patient's preoperative CT scan, and we're not the only ones doing this, but taking that preoperative CT scan and converting it to a 3D model, sitting side by side with engineer and the surgeon to plan the approach for the case. What do they want to achieve? If there's a deformity that we want to correct, let's talk about that, and basically do virtual surgical planning. And then ultimately be able to design not only the device, but also personalized instrumentation, cut guides, trials, things like that, that we also manufacture in-house. So it's been really cool to see the enabling technology on both the additive manufacturing side, but also some of the digital design tools really come to fruition over the last few years. And that's really fueled the vision that we had all the way back to 2017.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how far you've integrated various aspects of that whole value chain in Restore 3D within one organization. I think what's also very unique about Restore is that very early on, you vertically integrated the whole manufacturing process, which is probably quite scary for an early organization, right? It's a capital intensive equipment. It's quite complex to build these internal value and supply chains. Can you talk a bit more about the strategic decision of vertically integrating manufacturing and additive manufacturing? And was that kind of a key to your success and agility?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yes, it's been a key to our success. It was something from very early on in the business, something that we rolled the dice on, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
we felt very
Yeah.
strongly that it was part of the foundational core competency of the business. So we obviously had experience operating the research system that I mentioned that was at Duke University. And through that process, we essentially learned that these machines aren't plug and play. They're still not plug and play 6 years later. And so we really built up a lot of tribal knowledge and competency around how to
Mm-hmm.
operate these machines and get them to produce the types of devices that we were trying to manufacture. And so for us, we realized that there was a lot of inherent value in owning the manufacturing, not only from a supply chain standpoint, but also from a knowledge standpoint, and continuing to be able to essentially run R&D prototype builds on the same systems that we were doing production builds on, which we still do today. And that's been incredibly valuable, where our design, product development engineers, our manufacturing engineering team, and our operations team all speak the same language, and they can
Mm-hmm.
understand the capabilities and also some of the limitations of these machines, where potentially going to a contract manufacturer, some of that gets lost in translation and can lead to longer iterative kind of development cycles. So for us, it's been incredibly valuable from a product development standpoint. And then obviously the supply chain efficiency that comes with having everything within our four walls. For us, there is a lot of cost advantages to doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But probably the bigger advantage for us is the ability to be agile and quick when it's warranted. So for cases that do necessitate a very quick turnaround time because of the pathology or whatever it might be, an urgent case, we're able to manage our own production queue and expedite cases that need a quicker turnaround time, and then keep our normal turnaround time for run rate kind of production. And so again, that flexibility or agility to control what we make and when we make it has been incredibly valuable to the business.
Yeah, I could 100% see that. And it's something we've been talking about a lot in additive, right? Is vertical integration versus outsourcing. And most organizations shy away from initially vertically integrating. But I think what you pointed out is so key, is to build that internal knowledge and the expertise. And I could imagine that your organization actually, since you're working so closely together with surgeons and the teams in the operating rooms, is that you bring in manufacturing so close to the hospitals probably ever before. Do you realize that surgeons also interact differently with you guys and have all of a sudden different requirements and ideas that come up?
Yeah, I think great question. And yes, basically, one of our favorite things to do is to do VIP visits with surgeons and bring them to the production facility in our new office and show
Mm-hmm.
them the manufacturing. And one, it's incredibly impressive. For somewhere that we walk through all day, every day, maybe we become a little desensitized to it, but
Yeah.
seeing it through somebody else's eyes for the first time and just watching their eyes light up and they're like, this is how those devices get made, is so cool to see. I think one of the things that's been incredibly insightful is that for surgeons who see the technology, understand how the printers work to a greater extent, now all of a sudden you can start to see their wheels turning and they realize what the art of the possible is. And you can do so much operating on a Zoom call and talking about the anatomy in 3D and showing the CAD model. But when they see how those devices actually get physically produced, I think it clicks something in some
Mm-hmm.
surgeons' minds, and then they're off to the races with new concepts and creativity. And it's really exciting to see. And I think it's a very special thing that we're able to do because we have all of that in house and we can show it off. That being said, owning our manufacturing hasn't come without challenges and hiccups. And It's something that we endeavor to be better at every day operationally.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it, it's something that especially small companies like we were and still are to some extent shy away from because of the capex. And
Yeah.
it's something that's
Yeah.
a really big expense. You're betting a lot of dollars on being able to make it work. And so having had that kind of academic background and knowing we knew how to operate these machines because of the
Mm-hmm.
work that we had done in the research group helped to, give us confidence that we would be successful. And ultimately, it's been the right decision for our business, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy to underestimate the criticality and the knowledge that you need to operate these systems and design for that technology. And ultimately, your growth has really proven that you did bet on the right additive horse. And recently, there were even some announcements on acquisitions and you guys expanding your reach. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, happy to. As a business, we, like I've mentioned a couple times, really found ourselves in scientific evidence and have really hung our hat on being the go-to kind of provider for personalized solutions for orthopedics. And so we acquired a business in July of 2021 that was called Kinos Medical. They had a total ankle system that was traditionally manufactured, but based on great technology out of Drexel University on the biomechanical aspect of the kind of range of motion of the ankle joint. So we incorporated that business, merged them in back in 2021, and basically converted their traditionally manufactured implant system to additively manufactured and used our title technology or our gyroid lattice to also improve the product offering. And so we've launched that system in addition to the first all metal resection guides for total ankle arthroplasty. And so we're really excited about what that acquisition has borne fruit now a couple years later and fully releasing that product offering to the market over the course of this year. So that's been a really cool kind of way to see two companies with a really shared similar vision come together and deliver on that
Yeah.
vision of personalization through additive manufacturing. And then recently we just announced our intention to acquire a business called Conformis. And so that transaction hasn't closed yet, but we're very excited about the potential of combining those two businesses. Conformis has a very long history of offering personalized solutions for total knee and total hip procedures. So those are two procedures that at Restore 3D, we haven't had products or had pipeline products. But what we realized in looking at their business and thinking about ours is we had a very similar vision again. And so this idea of bringing personalization and providing those solutions to patients is something that was very commonly shared. Again, the Conformis product is not additively manufactured. And some of the thesis for merging the businesses together is that 3D printing and some of the core technology that Restore 3D has, along with the exceptional product offering that Conformis has built, and a lot of incredible clinical evidence to show the value of personalization, not only in the PSI kind of cut guides for the procedure, but then also personalization in the implant itself. And so we're incredibly excited about, again, bringing two teams together that share the same vision. We're very excited about the future of these technologies as we continue to bring more personalized solutions to the market.
Yeah, that's very interesting and incredible to see how, as you said, within 6 years now you're expanding into various other parts of the body, in this case hip and knee, applying your unique technology that came out of Duke University, really. Now you've positioned yourself. What does the future of Restore 3D look like? Also, from a technology perspective, are you thinking about incorporating other innovative technologies such as, artificial intelligence that we're hearing about every day now, which hasn't really found its way into manufacturing all the way yet? What does that look like for Restore 3D?
Yeah, I think the future of the business is a couple things. We've definitely proven proof of concept that personalization deserves the space in the conversation when we talk about orthopedics. And our vision is that every patient deserves personalized care. And so I think that as we talk more and more about the patient at the end of this, there is going to be a clamoring for more personalized solutions from the patients to their surgeons. And we're very excited to see that landscape evolve. That being said, we know that it's something that we need to make scalable. And so we have a lot of work in front of us to make this something that truly is just in time manufacturing and economical at scale. And that's something that we talk a lot about almost every day inside of our business, and endeavor to be faster and more efficient while still producing the highest quality products every day through our manufacturing facility. And so we do think of a lot of different technologies to be able to enable that. On the printing side, we've watched the evolution of the machines themselves over the last few years, and we really endeavor to be technology agnostic on the printer side. So we've moved from single laser systems to now quad laser systems in order to be more efficient and produce parts faster and turn builds over quicker and move parts through the production facility. So that's the operational production side of the physical goods. But then if you think upstream, a large part of kind of the lead time is also the design aspect of what we do. And so we've spent the better part of the last 2 years really trying to build out better digital platforms and tools to streamline that process. One example is our R3ID platform, which is a surgeon-facing web and mobile platform to allow them to basically facilitate their patient-specific process with our team. Their sales reps provide us information about starting a new case. We get the CT images for the preoperative planning through that portal, and basically walk them through the patient-specific design process. And then it also acts as an archive for them, so they have all their past cases that they can refer back to. And that's been a really cool way to see that product offering roll out, and how surgeons have been excited to adopt that to make it even more frictionless for them to do these procedures. And then on kind of the design automation side, we've also spent a lot of work there. And so you mentioned AI, that's certainly a buzzword. And I think we've seen kind of various embodiments of adoption of that in our space. I think the most notable would be AI-driven auto segmentation. The first step in our process after we receive a case and the CT scan is to convert the 2D DICOM images into a 3D CAD model. And that process happens through segmentation of those images, which traditionally has occurred manually by hand. And so you need highly skilled specialists to do that work. And it's not a trivial amount of work, particularly when we've been primarily operating in lower extremity. We've got 28 bones in the foot and ankle that they have to segment each individual bone and label them and create the 3D model. And particularly the cases we do that have high levels of deformity and hardware, metal artifact, and things like that. It's a very labor-intensive operation. But I think the use of AI tools to enable some of that auto segmentation and get it 90% of the way there even, and then have the specialized technicians finish the last 10% of the work is a way to really reduce the overhead costs while also the turnaround time on that part of the process. And then we also have enabled some early kind of AI algorithms for some design automation as well. So a couple examples of that where we've taken past cases that we've done that have been designed manually by hand, if you will, and then the preoperative anatomy, and trained a model based on kind of that paired data set to say, when given this kind of preoperative input, how do we design the best implant for that patient and make that design automation happen? And again, something where we'll always need a trained and specialized engineer in the loop. But if we can use AI to get us halfway there, 80% of the way there, we're realizing design efficiency that is really meaningful for us as far as ability to scale economically.
Yeah, that's the perfect use case for that technology. And hopefully, as you said, you will still need skilled engineers who verify what that model does. But getting those efficiency gains of engineering time and bringing it down, that's still where a pretty big cost sector of end-use part lays, right? Is in the engineering time. So making that more efficient hopefully also allows you guys to offer your products to a wider patient audience, and therefore I could definitely see a growing impact of Restore 3D, not only actually in the medical market, but also in other markets where what you guys are doing can be a role model that can be applied to other technologies and other industries as well. Because most folks either have so much legacy in manufacturing that it's hard to convert into a fully digitized process chain, or as we said before, they shy away from these investments. And you guys are, to me, the proof that it's worth investing and that it's worth fully integrating all of these technologies into one organization. So Cambre, for that, I want to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And I'm very excited to see what the future of Restore 3D holds.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.